And as part of your training to become a police officer, you do some integrity training.
Yes.
Some like ethics training to make sure
Correct.
that police officers are like straight and narrow and understand
So one of the
ethics.
things that I would suggest on that statement or that whole genre is it wasn't necessarily, we weren't necessarily trained on integrity or ethics. We were trained on, this is what would happen to you if. Don't take $5 from a motorist or $50 from a motorist, because that will lead to one, you being arrested and being all over the news, and then all the cops are going to hate you. Like, it was never really explained to you as a student in the academy, the depth of the lack of integrity and what you're actually affecting.
Okay. But like the fundamental issue if we don't trust law enforcement and the downstream consequences.
Thanks for saying it that way. Yes, because it destroys the very fabric of what people trust in law enforcement. Because when you need help, you got to call somebody, and the person that shows up has to be trustworthy. Now, I would argue, because I robbed money from drug dealers and even their drugs, you can still trust me, right? That's what I would argue. Because if you're not doing those things, essentially, you're safe with me, and I will give you the best police service that you ever asked for and probably go above and beyond to help you.
There was some kind of comment made at the end of your training by an internal affairs academy instructor, which basically said to be successful as a cop, don't follow these rules, the ethics rules that you were just given.
So yes, so that wasn't the internal affairs officer that said that. That would be your academy instructor.
Okay.
Yeah. So, ironic, he said to me, us in the academy class, if you live by the rules that these guys espouse, internal affairs, you'll never make a successful cop. Just cover your ass. That was his words. Just cover your ass.
What do they mean by that? Always have a reason, always have an excuse?
Basically, you hit it on the head. Like, so, and have, if you have a partner, be on the same page. So let's say something was handled inappropriately. Maybe there was some excessive force use, which I'm not fond of and nor am I in favor of. But there may be times where you might have given a guy an extra elbow. It happens. You know, you're mad, you spit in my face, I put the cuffs on you, I give you a shot. Do you hit the door on the way in? Sometimes. So as long as your partner and you have the story straight, you can pretty much, without these cameras today, get away with most things that are not unreasonable.
And the police all kind of agree that they won't snitch on each other.
That's the general rule.
And it's called, I read this term, the blue wall of silence.
Yes, right. So let's just be clear. The first person that's going to snitch on you is going to be a cop, okay? However, more chances than not, they try not to. And that's just the facts. Because what cop wants to go out on patrol knowing that if something goes down and it goes a little sideways from where it's supposed to go, let's say you and I were working together and you just told on me last week and now someone's pummeling you to death in the street, I have a chance to help you, or I can call for backup and wait, you know? So you don't want that relationship with me, right? I mean, we're trying to get home tonight.
Yeah.
So it really puts people in a very precarious position.
Because you need those other cops for your own personal survival. So,
correct.
So you don't want to be snitching on other cops.
Yeah. It's, you know, I mean, it's really not built, that position in this society is not built for somebody to come in and be the knight in shining armor and say, listen, Officer Dowd, that was not appropriate. I'm going to have to report you right now. Before he goes to report me, I'm going to either bludgeon him to death because now he's taking my livelihood away. He's taking the food off the table of my family. You don't look at it as like you're getting the guy in trouble. You look at it as you're taking a career, a livelihood, incarceration. I mean, these are the things that can happen. Like I said, the minute you put that badge on, and I didn't get to this, is the minute that the job is looking to take something from you. Like, think about that. A mechanic goes to work and they say, can you get 6 cars done today? I'll try. You got 6, and there's a bonus for you at the end of the day. A cop goes to work and they're looking to screw him the whole time.
Who's looking to screw him?
The department and the civilians. I didn't like the way he handled me. They make a complaint. Your boss goes, I got the people complaining, Dowd. I'm going to have to give you a shit assignment, or I'm going to have to change your assignment. I mean, the whole time, someone's against you.
They're trying to find some kind of chink in your armor, something you did wrong.
Yeah, and it's really to cover their ass. back to the beginning. It's a very, very difficult position. A fireman goes to work. You know what they do? They save lives. They put out fires. They eat a good meal. They have a great gym. No one's in there going, they have rules and decorum, but no one's going, we're looking to take you for this. We're looking to stripe you for that. The civilians aren't walking into a firehouse and going, I didn't like the way that truck backed out and the siren blasted and hurt my ears. They're going, yay, they're going to save someone's life. A cop shows up on the scene. He's going to give me a ticket. He's going to arrest my husband. My husband beat me and he doesn't believe me. I mean, it's such a grating position to be in.
When we're thinking about the factors, the environmental factors that led you to make the decisions that you made, one of the big factors that I was looking into at the time was there was obviously this crack epidemic, but then it also seemed like the police at the time didn't actually want you to arrest people.
Yes, that's correct.
I saw some crazy stat, which I'm sure you'll be able to account for me, but in the sort of decade that you were a police officer, you didn't do that many arrests.
No.
How many?
43.
You did what?
43 arrests.
You did 43 arrests in how many years?
Well, I mean, total 10 years, but yeah. So not all of that was patrol, but yeah. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I can make 43 arrests in a month, okay, if I really wanted to.
If you weren't corrupt at that time, how many arrests do you think you probably should have made in those 10 years based on the crimes that you observed?
500.
Okay. So about 90% of the things you should have arrested someone for, you didn't, roughly.
Correct.
Okay. And why weren't you making more arrests?
You couldn't keep the police on patrol if they were making arrests.
They were clogging up the system.
The system would get so jammed up. The average amount of overtime for one crack arrest was 18 hours.
You would be paid for that?
Paid time and a half.
Okay, so then the department has to pay you more money if you do an arrest.
And then process the arrest. And they all get processed through the correction system. And they all get processed through the court system. I mean, you're talking 150,000 arrests a year in Brooklyn alone. That's a lot of numbers if you just keep cranking at it. And everybody's getting 18 hours overtime per arrest.
And who's paying for all these arrests at the end of the day?
Well, the city. The
The
people.
city's paying. So the city don't want you to be arresting people.
Oh, because they got a budget to manage.
Were you ever directly told to stop arresting
Yes.
people?
Yeah. How's this? You really didn't make a dent on it, and now there's 2 men off patrol. And then your next assignment was the desk. You're making arrests, causing a problem.
Yeah.
The city's paying for it. There's less police available, and the robberies, the murders, and the rapes in those communities were extremely high. They rather have them sell crack than people getting robbed and raped and murdered. Does that make sense? Of course it does.
Yeah, so it's all incentives. I think if you look at any system, you'll understand why people behave they do if you understand the incentive structure. Right. And in your case, if you made more arrests of criminals, then the city would have both a bill because they had to pay cops overtime to take care of the admin work, but also they're going to have more cops off the street, which could also lead to more crime. More crime.
Yes.
So you were incentivized not to arrest people.
Correct.
Okay.
So what does that lead to? That leads to the streets becoming unwieldy. There's no control. So what happens is a guy like me who's entrepreneurial spirit shows up and says, there's a way to control this. I tax these people or arrest them, one of the two, and I can't arrest them, so I tax them.
And let's talk about that first experience of you taxing the first person, which I think was in 1983. Your starting salary when you joined the police was $18,000 a year, roughly.
Yes.
And you pulled someone over in 1983.
Yes.
And that's the first time...
That's the first time there was a tax levied.
That was the first time you committed a crime, I guess, as a police officer.
No, but the first time that I committed an actual money crime, I would say. Yeah.
How old are you at that point in 83?
23, 24, yeah. And that was basically, we called it a Puerto Rican mystery back then. I know that I'm famous for saying that, and people are, listen, that's what they called it, all right? Because the guy was from Puerto Rico, and he had no paperwork, no license, or anything like that. And he just bought the car.
You'd pulled him over?
Pulled him over, no plates.
No plates, right.
You just came here from Puerto Rico, you got a stack of hundreds in your bag, and I'm looking at him saying, you got like $2,000 worth of tickets, and I'm supposed to take your car from you. I said, but, I like lobster. Leave me enough money for a lobster lunch. This whole thing can go away. So the kid was quick on his feet. He left a couple $100 under my briefcase on the back seat. He got out, and I said, I don't want to ever see you again, unless you got some more lobster lunch money later. course, I didn't say that. And of course, I left that scene with the money, and I was very uncomfortable because it was the first time I actually solicited something like that. But it was sort of it's almost like I won something.
As a cop, one of the things we saw in movies back then is cops getting like sexual favors because they're cops.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
I would say it was available, and I've took some advantage of it. But there was some. Yeah, there was some. I mean, that's like you're driving by in a police car, and a girl says hello, and you go and you go fuck her. I mean, is that like a benefit of the job, or is that your promiscuity?
Did you ever do that while working?
Yes, that's my biggest sin in the world. I got laid while working
in the car.
Yes.
Wow. It's not just in movies.
The lights and siren only went off once.
Really?
That was from the blowjob. It wasn't from the girl's ass hit the fucking buzzer. I'm like, what the fuck? The big back. It's 3 a.m. You hit the buzzer. I'm in the back of a courtyard of a 9-story building.
Your boss, your sergeant, around that time, did he know that you were doing things like this?
Not then. No. But shortly thereafter, there would be a situation where my sergeant, it was a murder scene, dead kid, 20-year-old, shot in the head, and there was a marijuana spot. There's money, there's drugs, I mean, listen, it's overwhelming when you'll come across these things, and there's a dead body there, and you're entrusted to handle all this stuff, and you're broke.
Mm.
And so I took a little thin stack of hundreds and put it in my pocket. Turned out it was like $600. And as the crime scene was being processed, in walks my sergeant, Sergeant James Otto. He says, "Is this it?" Like 2-3 pounds of marijuana, which is like this much marijuana. It's a fucking big pile of shit. And I don't know, it was like, $1,500 in cash stacked all over here. He goes, "Is this it?" I go, "Yeah." I go, but I felt like he was asking me too much. So, well, I did have this, and I take out a thin stack of hundreds. And he goes, "Oh, anything else?" I go, "No, that's it." I said, I didn't want it to get full of blood. Later on that night, I run into him at a choir practice, they would call it. He went out bullshitting, having a couple beers. I said, "Sarge, let me ask you a question. What if," and I say, and I come across money, and he says, "What if I kept that 600? He goes, "I was annoyed that you gave it to me." Like, just picture the moment. You're 20-something years old, you're broke. You're coming to work, you're surviving. You're in survival mode. You're out having a couple of beers with your buddies, and your boss, who's got 20 years on the job at this point, so he actually could retire if he wanted to, and he says to you, "If I don't see it, it's yours." He says, "But let me know so you can throw me something later on." It was like the whole vision of this thing changed at that moment. It's basically saying, if you get there, it's yours. Take what you can before I get there, because I don't want to witness it, because I don't want to have to witness it.
Mm-hmm. Was he taking money?
Well, he'd say no, but clearly he was indicating that it's good. Just don't let me see it.
When you reflect on that scene that you arrived at, you said there was a 20-year-old man that was dead.
Yeah.
Did seeing those scenes ever bother you?
Initially, my first DOA was my first day. Guy jumped off a building and landed on his head. That bothered me because the family showed up. It was horrific. And I got to hold the family back and don't touch him because it could be a murder. We don't know. We don't know why he's dead. It's a crime scene, essentially. I began to see people shot, stabbed. You have a total disconnect, like really quickly. The first shooting I was at was doing a midnight shift, and the guys were doing a burglary of a car. They were stealing tires and tire irons. And I said, "Hey, we should stop these guys." And my buddy Sal's like, "Nah," my partner, "Nah, let them go. It's late." Someone flags us down. "Hey, this guy's trying to steal tires off a car." So now I said, "Look, we got civilians complaining about the same people that we should have just tossed." Turn around, go back about 2 or 3 blocks, guy's dead in the street. And I see a tire iron. So I said to the people, were they carrying a jack or a tire iron? And they go, "Yeah." And they point over to the street where the tire iron was for taking the wheels off a car. This guy could have shot us. So like he's dead. It could have been us. Or if we did toss this guy, he could not be dead. So when you come that close to death itself, your survival instincts give you an ability to disconnect fairly quickly from those types of scenes.
Did you ever show up to a scene where you saw someone dead or dying and feel sad?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a couple of times, but more important, one that strikes me a lot. I was talking to the guy who was going out. I knew he was going to die. You know, it was just he was stabbed in the stomach, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "I'm getting cold." I go, "Yeah, it's going to be okay." He says, "I'm getting cold, officer." I said, "Oh, you're going to be okay. We're going to get you to the hospital." You know, the ambulance showed up like 5 minutes later. And he was barely conscious when he got in the ambulance, and he wasn't going to make it. And he died. And that was sad because I couldn't do anything for him. I'm like,
You saw a lot of stuff. Why did that affect you?
I felt bad because I was talking to him, knowing he's going to die. Like, and one other time I felt really bad. Some guy who was, I guess he was getting laid. You know, young guy, big, heavy set, strong, powerful black guy. His wife is like, I looked at her, she goes, I'm like, I could tell it was a sexual thing. They had sex. And the fucking guy was like 35 years old. And he was either dead or dying. He had a heart attack. And I wanted to give him CPR. But it would have been my first actual CPR case, you know. And the two cops I was working with go, "No, don't worry about it. Go get the ambulance."
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Go get the ambulance. I'm like, "But shouldn't we do CPR?" No. You go outside. I was the kid. I was the rookie. And these two old timers were like, "Don't worry about it. It's going to be all right. Go outside and direct the ambulance." And like 2 minutes later, the ambulance showed up. They started CPR on the guy, and he died. To not render aid when you think you can make a difference, that hurts.
Why did they tell you not to render aid to him?
I don't know. I don't know why. They didn't tell me why, you know. And it was very disheartening because I think I could have helped save the guy. But what am I going to do? Wrestle with these guys? And, you know, they go get they're in charge. Senior cop on the scene is in charge.
At some point, you started actually dealing drugs.
Yeah.
How did you start getting into drugs? When was that eureka moment that you realized that you could sell drugs?
My partner at the time took some home out of the blue, and he came back and handed me a couple $100 one day. I said, "What's that for?" He goes, "That shit we've been throwing out is cocaine. We ain't throwing it out no more. I got somebody that wants it." So he's bringing me cash. I was like, okay, well, it ain't that bad. I mean, for me, it was like, I didn't see it. I didn't do it. So I was okay with it. And then it becomes like anything else. It softens the blow for the next step. And eventually I would lead to me just whatever dope I found, I would take. And if I couldn't find it, I'd see one of the drug dealers and say, "Give me something," or "Give me something for discount." I mean, you become a market maker at that point.
Did you stop buying it to sell it from these drug dealers?
At some points, I started buying it, yeah.
How bad did it get with the drug dealing when you were a cop? Because it almost sounds like you've, at this point, given up being a cop, enforcing the law.
So it's a dichotomy, right? Because I put the uniform on, I go to work. And if you are not in the drug business, you're going to get a good police officer. From my perspective, you may never say that, you may never agree with it, but if you had a car accident and you needed a police officer to take the report, bring you to a hospital, I would do all the arrangements, do the best I could. If you had gotten robbed, I would do the report, I'd take you to a hospital if you were injured. You know, whatever I needed, I responded like a proper police officer. But if you were in the drug business, you were mine. You were mine. Simple. I mean, how else can I say it?
What do you mean by you were mine?
You were mine. I owned you.
In what regard?
In every regard. Whatever I wanted, you were mine.
You could take their drugs.
Whatever I wanted. Your car if I wanted it.
Did you ever take someone's car?
I didn't have to. A guy gave me one.
What else?
Whatever. Coats, jackets, gold, whatever. Chains.
What was your biggest heist as a police officer?
They weren't that large. I'd say 40 to 50,000 at one time, which back then was good money. You know, you're talking about 2 years' salary. You know,
Yeah, if you're on a like $20,000, $30,000, whatever is
Yeah,
your salary,
yeah.
getting 40,000 is
Yeah, doubled my salary, tripled my salary. Yeah, that year. Things like that come along. So there was opportunities. So you would call that a score, right? Opposed to an ongoing thing. Because like, boom, it's there. It's a one hit and a wonder and it's over. Every job in East New York, 9 out of 10 was involved with drugs. You're exposed to it. It's your choice on how you deal with it. You're the boss. You are the boss. You show up, you're the boss.
were your colleagues around you doing the same?
The accurate answer is some were. The best description is you would never know. You would never know. I might because I know what's going on. But if you were a cop that was not involved, you would never know.
So the good cops wouldn't know that it was
They
happening?
wouldn't know. Because I'm not going to tell you. Now, if you happen to say something to me that hey, wait a minute, something went down there, I'd say, and what do you want to do about it? You want in?
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.